So when we were coming up with a theme for this year's summit on how we were going to tie things together, the team came up with reflect, connect, and inspire. This really has encapsulated what we've done this past year, and in particular, and when we thought about what we wanted to achieve in this year's summit. And so I wanted to take a little bit of time just here at the beginning to help represent what this whole incredible group of individuals, of which everyone in this room has really played a part in some part or another, in creating really what was a vision 5 years ago into what's now a reality. And so to take you back, the reflect is when we looked at what we wanted to accomplish with this amazing opportunity that we received from National Institutes for Minority Health and Health Disparities. At that point in time, research was coming at tribes in a lot of different directions, okay? The approval process was clear in some places, not so clear in others. And things would come through various entities, sometimes through tribal council, sometimes through health admin, sometimes through education, sometimes through the college, and sometimes they just come in. And usually, researchers' intentions, I would say almost always, are very good. Okay, they have a project they're passionate about. May not be a project that everyone's passionate about, but usually the intentions are good for to healing. But with a lack of understanding of process and protocol and what sovereignty really means, particularly as is implied in the research space, things were going in all different directions, which then leads to potential problems down the road. And we've seen many of those types of problems occur in the history and how mechanisms can be put within the past. And so through all of our work was like, how could we help create and help tribes enact a vision for themselves that would create a little bit more streamlined process to it, but also so that tribes were not just being passive recipients to the research process into healthcare research, but also started to drive the process with their own strategic agendas, with their own needs, and utilizing and building upon their own resources. And so CRCA was designed to help create that infrastructure and define those processes. Now, some of our tribal partners had started this well before. So, for example, in 2007, the Ogallala Sioux Tribe Research Review Board was enacted by the Tribal Council and things put in place. Now, think about this for a minute. Tribes rarely get indirect rates from research grants. Usually they're originated from the academic institutions. And academic institutions use indirect rates to create things like IRBs. But the tribe knew it was important enough to have a process in place that they created it and put their own resources towards doing that, okay? And so, you know, there were many that were starting to do those initiatives, but we needed a little bit of a boost to really help get things off the ground in the region. And so we started with some core values, and this served as our foundation. And those core values were centered in transdisciplinary research, so essentially researchers coming together from various disciplines and working together in a way to create new methodologies to be able to answer a lot of the complex health questions that exist out there. Sustainability. We've all seen grants come in, create great projects while they're there, and then when the grant goes away, a lot of that structure ends up going away too. Sustainability is hard. It's very hard. And how can we start building that in from the beginning with all of our different partners to be able to create something that really would outlast and outlive all of us? Then the third was a profound respect for tribal sovereignty and what that truly means to be a tribal nation within research, with a tribe with its own governing laws, with its own regulations, and how does that mesh with a lot of research which is funded federally? There's more areas where things are compatible than none, but that also, it takes knowledge about how tribal sovereignty applies within the research space and making sure that that's not just acknowledged, but incorporated into everything that's done. And how can we then help tribes start driving their own research agendas, again, rather than just being passive participants? So these were the values from which CRCA was formed. So the outcomes of these that we worked to achieve is to build research capacity and infrastructure, which you're going to hear a lot about today. Okay, after lunch, our tribal partners are talking about exactly how they've done that. Collaboration and partnership, which I think I challenge folks to talk to other people in this room, and you're going to find collaboration that's either already happening or great potential for it to happen in the near future. The amount of collaboration that's been coming out and been created through this has been amazing. And we've got some evidence to show some dollar amounts to show how that really is starting to translate into revenue in research areas, as well as just sheer productivity, things like that. Where we want to get is where the research actually starts helping with certain key indices in health disparities as well. And then research innovation, which you're going to hear a lot about today and tomorrow. Our large research will be presenting. Our pilot grants have all started to really get off the ground. You'll see posters that have many, many different projects represented. And so that research innovation has happened all within this space. So what we did is we started with our core values, we stuck with our vision, and we stayed with our purpose, which has been key and also made it a lot of fun. So we have numerous partners, and there's a list of them all in your program book so that you can become aware. But our area, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, is where we initially started from. Numerous tribal partner, again, that you're going to hear a lot about, tribal organizations included amongst our organizational partners, academic institutions, and healthcare entities. So from the tribal organizations, Missouri Breaks, we have partnered with for many years, National Congress of American Indians, American Indian Cancer Foundation, academic institutions. I think that every academic institution, at least within the kind of corridor in eastern South Dakota, North Dakota, has received pilot grant mechanisms. So South Dakota State University, University of South Dakota, North Dakota State, University of North Dakota, healthcare entities, Sanford Health. Sanford Research is a part of the Sanford Health System, but the health system's also engaged, Regional Health, Children's Minnesota. The list goes on. And all of these partnerships have been instrumental to creating and maintaining this vision. So, not meaning to get political here for a moment. Anyone that knows me, though, that knows it well for me. And so, I've heard this quote come out recently. And it just hit me home. Don't tell me what you value, show me your budget. And how often is that true? Okay, where certain things will be said to be of value, but really looking at where does the dollars go. And we need to challenge ourselves to make sure that we're holding true to those basic principles. So 68 to 72% of our grant budget, and this is it was a very generous grant budget that we've used every penny and continue to wring out of it, but went outside of the CRCAIH core services to support our partners and projects across the region. This is very important to us because we feel that this is then us truly enacting our mission and our values to really help build research across the region. Right now we have 17 subcontracts, which I think there's folks from our grants office here. They have been very patient with us. 17 subcontracts that go out. We try to use that mechanism whenever appropriate because then indirects, those institutions, get those indirects as well to help support things like their own IRBs, their own grants offices, and things like that. We really felt as a regional service, our center, that is important. And so anyway, I wanted to make sure we're practicing what we preach on that. So everything in the last few years has been done because of a vision, and not just a vision from, I'm up here representing the group, but the collective vision of the group. And, you know, we started with that foundation, but a lot of vision of what could be built. There are a lot of potential and a lot of good things have been going on here in separate areas for many, many, many years. And how can we keep working together to help create something a little bit larger than our individual parts? So in building tribal research infrastructure, I think the why I've already talked a bit about. You know, tribes are sovereign nations, right? Rights to regulate what happens within their boundaries and with their people. That also being said, there's a tremendous drive and need to help find real answers and real solutions for the health disparities that are so prominent in the different areas. And so how can resources like research be used to optimize health and well-being. And how do we marry those two together to make sure that there aren't missteps that are happening so that really good work can happen? And the focus becomes on asking good questions and getting good solutions. So protecting and benefiting, and then respect for knowledge of culture and traditions. And so how do you build this? And so the things that have really risen to the top in terms of what each of our tribes have elected to do, and they'll give you more details about this later today, but is starting with that regulatory system and creating a system of processes. Some it's been enacting formal research codes and laws. Some have been just developing systems and processes. But that regulatory process and how to make it more efficient. Virtually every single one of our tribal partners, when we were first looking at how we could help, and by the way, tribes had to, they applied to be part of CRCAIH because we didn't want to have some pre-selection bias on there. 16 of the tribes in the region applied. We currently have 5 tribal partners. The need is much greater than what our capacity was, but we tried to provide technical assistance out. But one of the things that was very clear is how the vision that people wanted to act and what they wanted to have happen with it. And that regulatory system was usually one of the first places people wanted to start. But once that got into play, there's been more talk, and we've really started to move more into the data management world. How can data be used, not just for one project, but how can it be used for multiple projects? And what I love is, I see the tribes dealing with this, of how they can use their data, and like Tribal Nations Research Group out of Turtle Mountain will talk with a little bit today of how they've started to create their data management system. And I also know NIH is also working in the same thing in terms of how to make sure that data doesn't just apply to one project, but it can be used broadly so that multiple projects don't have to be done on the same topics. And so those data management systems, and then also financial and technical support, were kind of really the main tools that I'm pushing the button. Stand on one foot. Can someone advance my slide for me? Thank you. Hopefully we can, might be a battery situation. And so just to, I've mentioned tribal partners, and here's a good map that shows you where they're all located. We have 3 tribes that are within South Dakota, Sisseton, Wampanoag, though does go into a little bit of North Dakota as well. So Oglala Sioux Tribe, Rosebud Sioux Tribe, Sisseton, Wampanoag, Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians, and Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. And all are represented here today, and we'll be talking this afternoon. Okay. I've gotten better at button pushing. So again, that capacity building, most have started with research regulation, but actually have done activities in a number of different areas, including cataloging current projects to start knowing what's happening, what's not happening, areas of need that aren't being met currently, community engagement, culture, and ethics, as well as a number of different research projects. And so our regulatory knowledge core really has done a lot with each of our tribal partners, especially in helping them get started in that. And through that work, they created a tribal IRB toolkit. And I'm looking at Jyoti Angle, and Tamana is, there's Tamana over there. Those two make up the regulatory knowledge core, and used those conversations and tools developed in collaboration with the tribes and put it into a toolkit. Now, if you know these 2 women, they're extremely organized and efficient, and really laid it out in checklist form in something that would be easy to do. And the conversation started going, hey, maybe other folks would also find this of interest. This toolkit just has spread like wildfire and has been disseminated nationally in many different conferences and organizations, and actually was referenced by Dr. Francis Collins recently in a letter he sent out to tribal leaders as they were working with tribal advisory capacity as a resource. And so this is available free on our website, and I believe we also have some copies here on a CRCAIH table. And so you can see for yourselves, and all of the forms are available in Word document as well, so they're easily modifiable, and has been really an incredible resource that derived from the work here that happened with the tribes here in creating their own infrastructures. In the data management space, really a lot of services related to data storage and management, again, so the data could potentially be used again, but then there were adequate protections put into place. In many projects and tribes, the tribes have ownership of the different data and how it can be used again, and that data was just building in closets and shelves and drawers, but there was no system to be able to use some of that information again, so the same projects may have to be repeated over time. Well, with our limited resources, let's maximize efficiencies. And so many have started their own data management system so they can start using their own data to demonstrate need, but then also to hopefully get projects more quickly to an intervention type phase as well. Community engagement, another important component of CRCA that really it permeates virtually everything we do. Coordinating with various community engagement activities to help support tribes. Dr. Victoria Grayowl runs this core and has also worked with 2 different tribes with sponsoring their own conferences and doing community needs assessments, as well as a whole variety of different items and various educational programs as well, which you can all find on our website, which is another area of community engagement, how we connect. Our website really, which I'm hoping many of you have seen, includes, and it will include copies of all of these talks that are given, all summits in the past that have been given, and those get up on the webpage usually quite quickly. Social media, we have a very active listserv as well. I have a number of technical resource videos that are available. And if anyone has a need or something they'd like to see, what we try to do is work with that individual to create it, and then we put it out broadly so others can also benefit. Other things that are methodology core, and this methodology core is run by Dr. Jessica Hansen, is the director of that, and it was initially started with Dr. Susan Pumla's work in this area, number of great folks that work in this area, and something else that created, and this was based off of seeing need in the region, as well as wanting to create a metric to be able to look at health impact. One of the toughest questions to be able to answer on a large-scale health disparity is are we starting to move the needle in health disparities? And not just with a specific question and a specific research protocol, right? Those can usually show pretty good effects when done well in a specific health condition, but I'm talking about the big needle, right? How can we look at, are we starting to close that gap more and more? In terms of health disparities and what can be expected. And because CRCA really deals with a variety of different health topics and a lot of different researchers and things like that, our methodology core came up with a health index, okay, that was available from data readily available. And I say readily available, and the methodology core is going, oh, God, not readily available, but they made it look easy, that we could look at across this different region that had similar data that could be pooled. And then I'll talk about the social index next. And so they created this health index, and you can see a poster about this now, and this is currently getting submitted for publication, that was based off of, again, available data across all of these different regions in health outcomes, various health behaviors, and also socioeconomic factors. And they took these and put it onto a map that we can also look at over a series of time. And so you can see in red our outlines of where our tribal partners are located, and we can look to see, is this global health index, okay, does it change over time? All right, so we're not just looking at one indicator, but more of a global factor of it. The darker orange, the group 1, are where you see essentially more health concerns. The light blue is where we see less, and this is in 2012. And so you can see on there, and this would require more time than I have available this morning, but how things change over time. We set up this index really not expecting that in 4 years, okay, we're going to move this big needle in that short amount of time, okay? We can always hope, but This was really set up so that after 20 years, we'd have a marker that could be used year after year after year, and that setting this up early would help then as time goes on. So again, I'll refer you back to the poster and to our methodology core to get more information on that. They also worked on creating a social network analysis. Remember, one of the purposes and aims that we first said was to help connect people, right? And to help connect us both in a scientific capacity and a collaboration kind of capacity. And so within the research realm, one way to look at that is who's publishing with who. Because we also want to make sure we're publishing in a respected, high impact, peer-reviewed journals, and we're getting information out. How many times have you heard about a great program and seen a presentation that you're like, oh my gosh, they had great results, but they don't publish on that data? And so then essentially what they've done is give a good talk and had a good project, but the others can't use that information. And so our methodology core, using social network analysis, which is crazy math, working with Augustana College in our area, worked on putting together the social network analysis on how we're doing. They also have a poster on this. And so in total, there's 584 authors that are connected within the CRCA mechanism, or within the structure essentially, which represents 184 publications. Okay? This is in 4 years, by the way. The location, 5% of those authors are international, 95% in the United States, and 12% are all in the CRCA state. So we have a lot of partners that are happening outside of here, which is good, but we also have more of a mechanism drawing things closer to home. And so you can kind of see the tier system for second, third, and fourth tiers to that. And this is, to me, looks like, what you would see in a schematic for like a pipe in a new building or things like that. And they can draw it down to individuals. So this just represents the whole for right now. Darker lines, more publications across people. But the point I'm really trying to just convey with this is the connecting people, having more and more connections across investigators, creating some tools to be able to actually demonstrate that and not just stand up here and talk about it, is something our methodology core has been working really hard at doing and trying to use some of these more recent tools to be able to capture that. And so, again, this is just to show you the breadth and the depth of the number of investigators who are now interacting and continue to interact within the CRCA social network and within our region. Another very important partnership for helping us achieve just some tremendous things is our partnership with the National Congress of American Indians. Looking over at these 3 lovely ladies over here who have helped make this possible. And when we first started talking about doing this and looked at the mission of the different organizations, and I've talked about with CRCA, but with the National Congress of American Indians, their mission is really to provide tribal leaders with the best available knowledge to make strategically proactive policy decisions in that framework of native wisdom that positively impacts their future. Okay? This has research written all over it. And found fellow research nuts who loved having data, because data was necessary to help make policy decisions, and not just to make the decisions, but to make informed decisions, and to also help provide evidence for what's needed. And so by combining some of their expertise in the policy realm, as well as the infrastructure we've developed, we created a fellowship program that Dr. Dina around him has been our fellow for the past couple of years, and really created a joint mission to facilitate that ethical research that meets cultural and contextual needs in communities and brings together that traditional Western academic and the policy sciences. And this has resulted in some different reports that have been created disseminating the information. NCAI has hundreds of tribal partners that are part of their organization and have wonderful tools for dissemination. And that's something that most researchers, we need to work on. And so really have been able to learn a tremendous amount, and they have really helped with getting information. We've also been able to help feed content, and it's been a wonderful partnership. Currently, they are actively doing workshops with a lot of our tribal partners, as well as a couple of others, in the area to help tribes establish their own research vision and agendas as well. Also, we were able to work jointly on some responses back to the Common Rule that's come out in the regulatory. For those of you who participated in our pre-summit workshop yesterday with the Office of Human Research Protection, OHRP, it was mentioned on that, and some of the things that were proposed both through the NCAI as well as through some of the tribal partners, some of whom are in this room, that created revisions, they got incorporated. That voice made a difference. And contributing in that open forum made a difference. And NCI has really helped us see how we can have a voice and how we can help all of our partners have a voice. And then also presentations and a whole variety of different activities. So the research innovation. We've had a pilot grant program that's had 61 applications over the last 4 years that this was offered. 15 were awarded. So it's been competitive. It's been competitive. A number of those applications coming from South Dakota, but we've been seeing a growing number coming from other regions as well. And so who those folks are listed on here, many of whom are in attendance today. One of the things that we like to highlight with this is that 40% of the pilot grants that were awarded had an American Indian PI or co-PI. There is tremendous need for more American Indian scientists. There's more need for American Indian healthcare providers as well. And to be able to be funded and receive external funding within the pilot grant mechanism, this was a huge accomplishment in terms of who was applying for these grants. This didn't go into the scoring mechanism. These PIs and co-PIs went through the same external review as everyone else and met the standards and were funded at the same standards that everyone else was. It shows tremendous growth and potential and need for these pilot grant projects. But being able to then now, how can we help these individuals, everyone that's on that list, convert their projects to being able to be funded by the NIH is the next goal. Right? To get at that R01s, which I know our keynote speaker will probably talk a little bit about today. And so then also our large-scale research projects, we had 3 that have gone on for the entire 5 years, and they will be presenting for the first time on this stage some of their results from these 3 projects, and you'll see these great research teams presenting later within this conference. So Dr. Lyle Best has led a team looking at factors influencing pediatric asthma, Dr. Nancy Fahrenwald on culturally targeted education on living kidney donation, and Dr. Susan Pumala on emergency department use and care in American Indian children. Each of these projects was initially selected because they had an intervention component to them, which is important within our tribal partners and entities. They all represented different types of science. And they all also incorporated community and hospital-based programs with very good scientific design. And so looking forward to you hearing about the results of those projects. So the sustainability. Oh, I can't go to the money slide quite so fast. As I was mentioning, this is a challenge. And always something you have to write about in every grant that you write. And how many of us have been like, oh, of course it'll be sustainable, not a problem. It's hard. It's very hard to do. It's hard to create something with funding, and then if that funding goes away, what do you do? Okay? What keeps it going? And so one of the metrics we decided to look at with our evaluation core, and by the way, I would be very remiss if I didn't, and I should have acknowledged our administrative core much sooner than that. Dr. Danielle Kenyon has led our evaluation team, served as the right arm, sometimes left arm, and both legs to the CRCA project. And Jessica Heinzman is probably out on the registration. Okay, usually she's running all over the brains behind the summit right there. They've helped put together all of these different metrics for this. And then Krista Frederick, she's probably running around with the registration, has also played an important role in these metrics. And so this is one that we came up with for sustainability. The initial CRCA grant was $13.5 million. That's a lot of money. that's a lot of money, and we have put it to very, very good use, and we've shown where some of it is going, okay? So what we wanted to look at is where our CRCA partners, and were we able to turn that around and get additional dollars, okay, to help support research infrastructure? Because really, sustainability, a big part of it is funding, right? So these are ones that have been awarded, not just submitted, have been awarded. And we're talking in just a 4-year time period here, okay? Have brought in over 30 grants. The grants awarded from all partners combined exceeds what the original CRCA grant was for. $13.8 million, okay? For every dollar invested, our partners have turned this into at least getting $1 more additional investment, and this is all in American Indian health research, okay? And this is a testament to everyone that's out here. So as a region, this is a growing field, but I think this also shows that the investment in the infrastructure literally pays off. I know. Trust me, we got those numbers in. We're so excited for everybody. So to take us back, we stuck with our core values, we stuck with our vision, and we stayed with our purpose. And that tribal voice has increased and is now driving more of the research space rather than the other way around. And you should hear that throughout today. We're still constructing, right? We're still building upon the foundation. Visions have not been fully achieved. We've got a long way to go. But when you think and you reflect back on where we were 5 years ago and where things are going now, and again, that 5 years ago was just one time period. There was tremendous momentum happening before that as well. And so continue to build together. Here's a list of all of our current CRCA partners. And so when I talk about all of these great accomplishments and things that have worked together, please know this is a large group that's represented within this. And so I'm just going to ask if everyone is, for our CRCA partners and things, could you guys just stand for a moment? Yes, I'm making you stand up. Spiro didn't stand, but he's on external advisory board, so call him out on that. And so with that, I'd like to have an end slide with using a picture that's very important. My mom painted this, who's in the audience, actually, so they can, I think, learn more about what I do. But did this as inspiration from some of the work that we had done in fetal and infant mortality. And so with that, there's some contact information and our Twitter handle. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to open. I think we have some time for some questions. No time for questions. Okay. All right. Thank you.